Hello everybody.
Hi everyone.
We've got a very exciting story, really. It's more of a story.
It's a story, this one. Yeah, definitely.
Obviously provided by Paul and his dulcet tones. He's going to educate you all on this wonderful place. We are at a BBC receiver station, which had a fascinating story. We're going to explore the bunker and we're going to explore the only two real main surviving things, which is also the office building as well.
Indeed. Yeah.
Now, we're assuming that both have seen better days. This isn't my first rodeo here, but this is my first rodeo recording this, and I'll probably tell you more about that as we explore it. But let's do this.
Let's do it.
Come on, let's go.
Hidden away in the hills of Surrey, southern England, just outside the village of Tatzfield, there used to be a place where invisible signals from around the world were caught out of thin air. It wasn't a spy base, it wasn't a broadcast studio, it was the BBC's Tatzfield receiving station, and for nearly 50 years it quietly listened to the world. When the BBC built Tatzfield in 1929, radio was exploding in popularity. But there was one big problem. Nobody really knew how far the signals travelled or how the weather and the atmospheres affected them. So the BBC built a site that didn't transmit, it received. Its job was to test, measure and monitor the invisible airwaves that carried the BBC's voice around the world. At Tatzfield, engineers worked in silence, surrounded by a forest of aerials and antennas. They spent their days tuning into faint crackling signals from thousands of miles away, from Europe, Africa and even the Americas. It was like listening to the heartbeat of the planet through static. When the Second World War began, Tatzfield suddenly became a lot more important. The station started tracking enemy broadcasts, analysing Nazi propaganda, pinpointing new transmitters and making sure that the BBC's own messages were reaching occupied Europe loud and clear. Tatzfield wasn't just technical, it became part of Britain's information frontline. After the war, the listening didn't stop. During the Cold War, Tatzfield kept an ear on the world, monitoring Soviet and American transmissions, logging new stations and spotting changes that could signal political shifts. You could tell when something big was happening just by the sound of the airwaves. For the engineers, radio wasn't just technology, it was intelligence. But by the 1970s, radio was changing. Satellites and digital systems were taking over, and Tatzfield's huge antennas were no longer needed. And in 1974, the BBC closed the site for good. After nearly 50 years of listening to the world, Tatzfield finally went silent. Today, nothing remains but traces in the grass and echoes in the archives. But for nearly half a century, the men and the women of Tatzfield listened to the heartbeat of the world, and in doing so, helped Britain understand it. Buildings may have gone, the spirit of Tatzfield lives on, a quiet reminder of the engineers who kept Britain tuned in, informed and connected. So join us as we explore the remains of Tatzfield's receiving station, where voices from the ether once found their way home.
everybody. We're inside the bunker for Tatzfield receiving station, and what an interesting place.
Very interesting.
Very, very interesting. This has been on my bucket list to do for a long time, and actually, funny enough, by it being reconditioned, repurposed, it's actually probably put it in a great thing. Paul's gonna stay here. It's a little bit wet, and I'm just gonna carry on and get some wet feet. But before we start, if I just turn you around for a second, because what I'd think is really important is that if we get the layout and we can talk about this whilst we're doing it. So we've actually come through, and the sump is ironically somewhere down there, and then the accumulators would have been in this building, which is now being completely blocked off. But the door, believe it or not, is still existent on all of them. In fact, that actually says, it looked like there's a number on that. It's very difficult to tell. There's also a little vent that's there as well. There's a few vents that are here. But now we've gone in, we're now going to be into the check-in and monitoring room, which you can sort of see. So, without further ado, I'm going to do this a bit cack-handed. So apologies, everybody. But thank you, mate. Are you okay with that? So we're going to do this a little bit cack-handed. Apologies though, but this is just how we've got to sometimes do it. But there we go. So now we're in the check-in and monitoring room. And obviously the first thing you can see is the former cabling pipes and the vents that are up there, and some old files, and obviously a beautiful light switches, which are great, that still exist. So yeah, this is the check-in and monitoring room, which would have been pretty much one of the main hubs. So there's only 3 rooms here. So check-in and monitoring, then we're going to go into the laboratory, and then we're going to go into the frequency standards room. But look at this, for old switches, everything else. Shelving is still here. And then well, here we go, everybody. We're into the laboratory, which has seen, all of this has seen better days. It's been extremely well documented. And as we look in here, this is the frequency standards room, which has a emergency exit, which has now been since sealed up. So this is the emergency exit, as you can see, that has got some actual, looks like a tape machine or a tape desk there. And they've done a really good job of actually clearing this out. It's a shame, because there was one point, there's a lot of this stuff that survived. But yeah, this is the frequency standards. You can see there's beautiful old vents there. In fact, actually, there's a conduit, which is actually what we just sort of looked at. Beautiful doors, beautiful fuses. Again, you can see here, look at this. Wonderful fuses. Vents, it's loads, incredible history, this. Absolutely remarkable. Because like I said, it is flooded, so it's not ideal. But, Paul, do you want to wave? There you go, mate. So, yeah, this old Paul has been helping me out a lot. Again, all the floor is just rubbish, as you can see. Really not great. But again, just want to really document this as best as possible now. Frequency standards, again, you can see the vitalness of these, what this would have been. The history of this has been extremely well documented, as you've seen in the history lesson anyway. And we're really only going to be scratching the surface on what we've pretty much discovered on this. And like I said, it's been a fair few explorers have done this one, but remarkable. But yeah, that's the old emergency exit. And we're not actually, it's a bunker by name, but we're not really that much underground. So we're really not, we're only a few, you saw us walking down the stairs, but here's the conduit. All the main power was, and obviously you've got your vent there, etc., etc. Wonderful. Look at those old switches, that standards lab indicator. Royal on and off, standards maintenance simplex. Look at this. Let's just take a look at what this is over here. Didn't really sort of see this. This looked like sort of some sort of extra fuses or something. Yeah, look, that got taken out of this. So there's a fuse box over there that you can see. Really incredible. Taking some photos. Yeah. I'm gonna have one more look in because we might as well. So let's have a quick look. So we're just taking one more final look. Get a really good indication of this as best as possible. But like I said, unfortunately, what's left is really minuscule. There's a number, looks like a C and a 4 there. Beautiful old light switch there. Obviously just completely not healthy at all in terms of what's here. But look at this. Heating, drive room, isolator, maintained and registered. Look at this. Light switch. And then, here we go. Like I said before, there's our escape hatch. And yeah, like I said, not the healthiest place to come into. Probably would have been better if we'd worn a mask, but yeah, whatever. Over these days. So yeah, very cool. Very interesting. When I say cool, I don't mean it in like a cool me. I just mean like in a historical level, this is really interesting. So I think we've done a really, as good as we can do for the state that's in, job. So let's just head out. Take one more look at those fuses. Alright, we're done. Let's go. Right everybody, so we're now outside the bunker. Just wanted to sort of show you, obviously all these vents that have been sort of sealed up on the side. You can see the compository of how it's been made, brick and concrete as always, and that's our entrance point which leads us down the steps. And then once we're down the steps, you're inside and obviously split into 3 compartments, and that's our escape hatch which we saw from the opposite side. So Paul, what do you reckon? I know you didn't get an opportunity to go in, mate, but no, if you can just let everybody know, I mean...
That's just, it's truly remarkable, isn't it?
It really is.
It really is.
I mean, the history that it contains is just remarkable.
It's remarkable.
Really
second to none, isn't it? And to see it still here, especially, and yeah, you've done really well down there. Damn well done.
Well, thanks, mate. Because I think, because I spoke to Paul and I spoke to everybody. This one I'm sort of obsessed with, but the reason is well, I've held off is because I've visited this a couple of times before, and those buildings behind us, it was quite busy and quite active every time I was sort of here. And now, given time, the fact these still exist, all right, it's a lot emptier than if I'd visited it X amount of years ago now. But I don't care, because I've got to do it, and it's still an incredible piece of history. And now, actually, funny enough, with the camera that we're using and the quality and the history we've got, probably would make even better video than if I'd started my journey when I'd first done this. Because it's actually not too far away from where I used to live, or originally live. It was kind of one of these ones that was always the sort of semi one that I should be really doing. Yeah. But we've spoken about that. We now need to go behind us into the offices, so let's go and check it out. Come on. Well, everybody, we've now made it to the office building, which we've decided we're not going to go beyond the fence because, well, take a look. It's seen extremely better days. Now let's just talk about the layout. So in front of us basically would have been the secretary's building, and it's split into 4 buildings potentially. So you've got this, and then to our right here you've got the engineer in charge, which would have been an incredibly important job, as you can probably imagine. And unfortunately, like I say, you can see where everything is falling in, the wood, etc, etc. And then the clerical staff, isn't it, Paul? Yeah, clerical staff in this building. So basically look at that window, you'll know that in that window there, that would have been the clerical staff. Yeah, window in each, which obviously gives you an indication of the size of the room. If I just sort of show you underneath there. And then next to it is the final room, which is the assistant engineer in charge. So they would have had their own separate room, not large rooms, but rooms nonetheless. And you can actually see, if you look down, that it's obviously on a slight angle. If you can see the red brick that pokes up a little bit, because we are, as you can imagine, on a hill. And actually in the far distance, you won't be able to see this at all, but you can see Canary Wharf and the Shard. Full some feeling.
Mate, it's really good.
It really is.
It's a little classic, hidden away.
Yes.
And to see it how it is now, as you say, it's still standing a little
There's
bit.
lots of little bits of rubble and masonry a little bit round here, but there's no point talking about that. A lot of the buildings, when you look at the old photos, were sort of all old traditional sort of wooden hut types of ancillary buildings, and obviously going through a few phases. But like I said, we're here to document the main things, and like I said, the main thing for me is to document the bunker. And if it meant me getting a bit of wet feet, I'm happy to do that. And obviously the conditions change, but the outline is still the same on it. So hopefully we've done a really good job of these. History lesson has obviously, as you can tell, been provided by Paul. You can tell with beautiful dulcet tones of his interest in all this as well, which is fantastic. Thank you, mate,
thank you.
for joining us on this wonderful Surrey trip. Should we say goodbye now?
I think so.
All right, then ready?
Cheers, guys.
See ya, kapow.